John Brakey to the stand.
Did we swear you in, sir?
No, ma'am.
All right, why don't you just step forward and I'll have the clerk swear you in. Raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You'll have a seat over to my right, watching your step as you
Just one, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
Like this.
All right. Would you please state your name for the record?
Well, we-
Just one.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Just a moment. Okay.
Would you please state your name for the record?
John Roberts Brakey.
And Mr. Brakey, does Sergio often assist you with correspondence on behalf of Audit AZ?
Absolutely.
Now, I know this is a little bit of an embarrassing question. I apologize for asking it in advance, but why is it that Sergio assists you with, would you say, all correspondence?
Two reasons. One is I'm dyslexic. Secondly, he's the one who introduced me into the group, who brought me to a meeting in Tubac where I sat down with a number of candidates and individuals who were concerned. And from that point right there, I always considered him being a very close person to work with, and really the chairman of the group.
Now, why does the fact that you're dyslexic have anything to do with him assisting you with the correspondence?
I can reverse very badly. I can get a sentence and just reverse it. And it's very embarrassing when I do that.
So he helps make sure that doesn't happen?
We make sure the grammar is perfect.
Now, did he assist you with drafting the public records request?
Yes.
Okay. And was his assistance merely making sure you didn't reverse things, or did he
No.
have substantial?
It was more into like, why are we doing it this way, or confronting me on certain issues. He really got heavily involved, which is very good in the process.
Okay. And then you walked in with him to submit the public records request on July 9th?
Yes.
Is that correct? And you both spoke at that meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And was he with you when the subsequent copies were delivered to other parties?
He was with me when we delivered to Melinda Meeks and to Susie Sines. The third copy I delivered myself because I wanted to have a chance to meet the mayor before I understood that the election process was not involved in that.
Okay. We've talked about Exhibit 1. Okay. I'm gonna give you a copy. Before you do that, were you at the Board of Supervisors meeting with Sergio on or around August 6th?
Yes, I was.
And did he speak at that meeting?
Yes, he did.
And what did he speak about?
He spoke about.
Objection.
So stay.
Did you speak at that meeting?
Yes, I did.
What did you speak about?
I spoke about the process and that we were here looking for a records request. And I spoke about my concerns and trying to get them to understand that this was a records request and that we're not accusing anybody of anything, but holding government accountable is an important part of what we do.
And did you also attempt to assuage the county's concerns, without getting specific, did you also attempt to assuage the county's concerns regarding security at this meeting?
Yes.
And did you also try to assuage the county's concerns regarding security in the correspondence that you undertook with Sergio prior to the meeting?
Absolutely, and after.
Okay. Oh, you've got your exhibits up there, don't you? Okay. So, now, you had a meeting with Melinda Meek. Prior to the 17th, is that correct?
We had a telephone conversation.
Oh, you had a telephone
And
conversation.
then I wrote a letter.
Your Honor, I need clarification what month we're talking about?
Yes.
I need a clarification.
Oh, sorry.
What month?
Last month. It was last month?
July.
And what sort of things did you discuss with Melinda Meek? Just what you talked about, obviously.
From the first meeting to the second?
No, just that, well, let me give you a document, then we can talk about the
Yeah.
meeting. Can you please identify this document for us?
Is it marked then?
This marked as Exhibit 2?
Somebody's messing with the mic. Yes, carefully don't touch the papers to the microphone.
That's right. This is a letter that I wrote her after my conversation with her by telephone.
Oh, okay. And does that help refresh your recollection as to what that conversation by telephone was?
Yes, it certainly does.
Okay. And does that record your recollection of that conversation in a pretty accurate way?
Absolutely, it was done right away.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to motion to have this moved into evidence.
You all right, I need to see that?
It's marked as Exhibit 2. Is there a copy up there? All right. So, Your Honor, we'd like to have this evidence as Exhibit 2. Okay. Now, does that recording of your recollection help you to understand the way that conversation went?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about the conversation.
I called and I was inquiring about a records request because, you know, I gave them 10 days in my letter. And because it's fair, even though it was pointed out to me by another attorney that I worked with that, John, the first day you requested, you could have had it. But I wanted to be, you know, not demanding or anything. I thought I gave a sensible letter explaining what we're trying to do. And then I met with a phone call, and it was really kind of like insulting and calling us a little committee, and that we have no such time for your foolishness, you know, on this records request. And it was, you know, it was like they weren't taking us serious, the citizens.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention to what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 6, which is,
1, 7, 4,
you know,
2, I don't have 6.
You can keep that one 6 for a second.
Okay.
Okay, and can you identify that again? I know Sergio has, but.
Yeah, this is the letter from the Office of the Santa Cruz County Attorney denying all of our requests, records requests.
Okay. Now, why is that, and first of all, was that letter sent to you?
No, it was sent to a man named Mr. Mark Larkins that me and Sergio employed for a little while, but it did not, he didn't want to go the same place we were going.
And he's your, and he was
He
your
was our
attorney?
temporary attorney for a few days.
Okay, and both you and Sergio received copies of that letter?
Yeah, I believe so. I know I did, and I believe he did too. I believe see what I got. Even though I probably sent it out to him in the world right away afterwards.
And that was the
And
day.
I published it on our site.
And that was the day after, the Board of Supervisors meeting?
I believe that a couple days after that, I did get it, even though I knew it was coming.
So, a day or a couple of days,
Yeah, yes.
okay, so. All right. So let's have you walk through the meetings with the county. You already discussed the initial delivery of the documents and the email on the 17th. And then on July 21st, along with Sergio, did you offer a meeting between you and Sergio and the county to try to explain why this request had compromised the security of the election?
Is that the letter that we sent to the, to George Silva? Is that what we're referring to?
I'm not.
George Silva, county attorney. I believe that was the letter 21st.
Yeah, this is a letter on the 21st. Yeah, so, okay, so I'm gonna bring this up and have you identify this particular letter. Would you please identify this letter? It's marked as Plaintiffs Exhibit 3.
Yes.
Okay. And in that letter, or if you recall, in that letter, did you request a meeting with George Silva in order to discuss whether, discuss about the request?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you another set of emails, an email set of exchanges marked Exhibit 7. Okay. Would you please identify these documents?
These are the email exchanges that I started having with the Board of Supervisors shortly after I received the letter, after talking to another individual who was talking to them saying that the Board of Supervisors thought, John, that you were gonna walk out with their computer. And I'm going, how could they think that? And so then I started getting into a dialogue with him, pointing out that, hey, we're looking for the mega tab. We're looking for the records request by law, and I've gotten these records before out of Maricopa, I got them out of Pima County, and in fact, I'm frankly kind of shocked that we're even discussing this, because this is something that we've been able to get for years.
Okay, well, I want to direct your attention to the beginning of the first email. Do you clarify anything in the beginning of that first email with regard to what your request is for?
Well, it was, I was informed by a mutual friend, Heidi Ortiz.
Well, you can read it, but
Oh.
does it sort of, you wrote, did you write this email that
Yeah, I did.
clarified the issues?
Yeah, I certainly did.
Okay,
After
what-
talking to Heidi, I wrote this.
And to mitigate the county security concerns?
Yes.
And what specifically did you say to attempt to mitigate the county security concerns?
That we're not looking for any software programs, we're not looking for any secret code, we're not looking for things that are priority owned by computer companies. We're looking for the data under the Arizona Public Records Request.
And was Sergio with you when you wrote those emails and received those emails?
We discussed it over the phone
Okay.
and saying, well, God, you won't believe after talking to Heidi what these people are thinking. And then I referred back to the video to Raul, and I started realizing that their IT guy, Heidi was right, that the IT guy for the county was telling him that we want this and that. He was interpreting our records request completely wrong. And that was what I was trying to clarify, is that, this is not what you all think it is. This is a simple records request.
Okay. Now I'm just gonna move through the remaining exhibits that we don't have, so we can just sort of get those authenticated.
Move to the remaining
Exhibits.
louder.
Exhibits, sir, that we have, so we can get those authenticated. This is,
Two sevens.
you have 2 7? Okay, very good. So this is the George Silva email, marked Plaintiffs Exhibit 5, okay? Is that an email that you and Sergio wrote to George Silva?
Yes.
Okay. And do you put the county on notice that they're in default at that point?
Yes.
Okay, with regard to responding to your records request?
Yes.
Okay, and what's that letter dated, if you recall?
This one is dated July 28th.
Okay. And at any time between that time that letter was written and today's trial, has the county complied in any way with any portion of your records request?
Nothing.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd like to have Plaintiffs Exhibit 5 moved into evidence.
I see that, I need to see that one. I think it's a misstaple, I don't think there's, yeah, there's like an extra page or something like that. looks, it's the same.
Oh, it's still misstapled?
Yeah.
Can we just tear off the page that,
Well, I don't know which,
so, just tear this off? Because this is from the county attorney's letter, I apologize, I didn't misstaple that. Did we get that with the temperature?
Oh, you need to have them identify what you have now.
Okay,
This is
what,
an exhibit.
sure, with regard to the newly stapled exhibit 7, is that email we were discussing?
Did you say 7 or 5?
Exhibit 5, was that email we were discussing?
What's missing is the page of the Charlene LaPlante page, which is the county letter, one of the pages is missing here, so.
Well,
This is-
I'm just talking about the email, we've torn this
Oh,
off,
good.
so we're just talking about the
Okay.
email right now.
That's
We have
fine.
Charlene
That's
LaPlante.
fine.
That's complete, okay, that's that email?
That's it.
Now I'd like to move the court to have exhibit 5 entered into evidence.
It'll be admitted.
All right, Mr. Brakey, I'm going to show you another document. Mr. Brakey, do you have an exhibit 2 up there?
Yes, I do.
And this is the committee, this is the email we talked about before, that was your recollection of your phone call with Melinda Meek recorded? Is that?
About your phone call
With Melinda Meek recorded?
This is after the phone call, I wrote this letter.
Okay. And you wrote that along with Sergio, or did you write that on your own?
I wrote that by myself, and then I talked to Sergio, I said, explained to him, you won't believe what she said, you're taking it seriously, I don't want to talk with him about it. And I said, I'm disappointed that I didn't tape record it, because I usually do. And so I'm gonna write exactly what happened and get it down there and send it back to her and others, letting them know that, what her statements were, never got a response.
Okay, we'd like to have this motion to have the court admit this as Plaintiff's Exhibit 2. And this is as Mr. Brakey's present recollection recorded.
This is what?
As Mr. Brakey's present recollection recorded.
It'll be admitted.
Okay. Mr. Brakey, I'd now like to direct your attention, where's the, oh, is it up there? I'd now like to, do you have an exhibit up there, Mark, Plaintiff's Exhibit 3?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Brakey, we had discussed an email with George Silva before, regarding the default, is that email?
It's the number.
Yes, it is.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 3. Okay, and that's an email that you drafted on behalf of yourself and Auditaze and the other parties?
Yes. I work for the, I was the special task force leader for the Santa Cruz Election Integrity Committee.
Okay, and that's the email where you placed the county on notice that they were done default or not?
First time. First time officially.
Oh, okay. Did you subsequently also?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Before he gets to the yes, I did part, we'd like to move to have this admitted into evidence, Plaintiff's Exhibit 3. Okay. And when were the subsequent times that you placed the county on notice that they were in default?
After our meeting, well, first off, verbally, I stated it in the meeting with George Silva and Charlene LaPlante. Stated it there, and then I followed up by email in the letter of Monday, July 28th, which I'm looking at Exhibit 5.
Okay, and this was the follow-up?
Yes.
Okay. from,
Get
and,
your own microphone.
Just a minute, this was from what?
this is from yourself and Audit AZ
And special task force leader for the Santa Cruz EIC.
okay, and did Sergio help you write that letter?
Yes.
Okay, and this letter that you were talking about, we'll go on with your discussion of that, please.
I pointed out to them that they were violating Arizona Revised Statute 39-121-02. And that we were entitled under 39-121-01. And I stressed to them that I've done records requests for 10 years now, okay? And I know how to do them, and I'm really quite shocked that you really haven't given us these records. And to the point that the county attorney was telling me, well, you're gonna get them. And he kept promising me that we were gonna get the records.
Now, did you discuss any other statutes in that or any other letter in your correspondence with the county?
All the time.
Okay.
I think you'll find that most of these documents, you'll find that I'm referring Arizona Revised Statutes.
Okay. Your Honor, we'd like to have a motion to have this letter moved into evidence as plaintiff's exhibit number 5. And you did so on behalf of Worcester, Joe, really? Right?
And also for the Santa Cruz EIC.
Okay.
It's a committee that we formed, probably sometime in June. We did it in two-back. We sat down and we started discussing the strategy of how to do accountability in elections and the whole concept, which was an important concept that somehow we have forgotten to do in this country.
Okay. And you also submitted that request on behalf of Robert Roma.
Yes.
So he asked you to submit that on his behalf as well, or?
Yes.
So he asked you what?
To submit that on his behalf as well?
Objection here, sir.
Okay. Well,
Sustained.
all right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Mr. Brakey, are you an attorney?
No, sir.
Okay. And do you have a power of attorney for any of the other named plaintiffs in this complaint?
No, sir.
I'm not entirely aware of what dyslexia means, but do they, are there any, does it represent itself in conversations at all? Or is it just writing that you have visually that causes difficulties for you?
It can happen both.
It can what?
It can happen both ways.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking, because earlier you said, and I'm going to quote you, I gave the 10 days in my letter. Was that dyslexia that had you say I and my instead of we?
I would say that, if anything, poor writing skills, maybe.
Well, today you didn't write that. You said that. You said, I gave them 10 days in my letter.
Yeah.
You didn't have the same emphasis, but you used the word I and you used the word my. You didn't use the word we. Well, why was that? Was that dyslexia today?
I don't think so. I think that.
Because it was your letter.
What?
It was your letter.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you were the one, you had the name on it. It was your name that signed it.
When I signed it as John Brakey, I did it in behalf of the Santa Cruz Election Integrity Committee, which withheld all those people, and you're gonna constantly see in the bottom, Santa Cruz EIC.
Okay.
And I'm a special task force leader, so I have to be reporting to somebody.
Okay, and the address that's identified on Exhibit 1, Plaintiff Exhibit 1, in lots of pages of that, is that, I won't say the address, but is that your personal address?
Yes, sir.
That's your residence where you live?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the phone numbers identified there, those are your personal telephone numbers?
Yes, sir.
So what was your authority to represent anybody else?
I don't understand the question. What do you mean?
You said you sent this letter, that the records request was made by you on behalf of yourself, on behalf of AUDITAZ and this other organization that wasn't a plaintiff. And what was your authority to represent those other individuals because you didn't have a power of attorney and you're not an attorney?
Using my citizenship and understanding the Constitution of the state of Arizona when it comes to elections, and how elections are, if you look in the Constitution, are run by the people and oversaw by the people. Something that's maybe has gotten to be a failed concept that needs to be reactivated.
During his testimony, Mr. Arellano, in referring to you, said he's the expert. Are you an expert?
I've been doing it for 10 years.
Doing what?
Monitoring elections, Maricopa, Pima. I first hooked up with Sergio at the Sunnyside elections, how I hooked up with him, and that was in May.
In May of this year, you first?
Yes,
Okay.
and we bonded pretty instantly. And he dragged me to Tubec, which got me involved in this thing. I wasn't planning on doing that election in August because I was planning to take a vacation at that time to go to Maine to visit family. And I had to change my dates.
So prior to May, I mean, what was your connection to Santa Cruz County?
I was down here 8 years previous to that when I was working with the Arizona Democratic Party as their special task force leader, and I did a report on Santa Cruz County, which is part of the letter, and it was quite disturbing. And then over the course of 8 years, I was constantly getting calls from people in Santa Cruz County saying, John, please come down and take a look. One of the people I hooked up with, Jack Schulnick, who's sitting right there in the audience 8 years ago. And we had our first meeting with George Silva, that I'm talking about in the letters here. And the problems with elections. Also, a big problem that we found down here is that Santa Cruz
Let
County.
me cut you off there. So you had some involvement with the county a number of years ago. Have you ever lived in Santa Cruz County?
Oh, yes, sir, we did.
Okay, during what time period did you
I
live in Santa
lived
Cruz
here
County?
from 1975 through 84. Married a lovely little lady from this town. We're still married. It was our anniversary yesterday after 36 years.
Congratulations. So at what point,
36 years.
so you lived here from 1975 to 1984?
We're going to object to relevancy at this point, Your Honor. The public record statute says any person may request a copy. It doesn't say you have to be a resident of the county.
And I recognize, Your Honor, I can describe the relevancy. Your Honor, assuming that the court does decide that what has been requested is a public record, the court needs to take a balancing test of the interests that the county's interest in preserving and protecting these records and the integrity of those records. And at this point, the only plaintiff is somebody who doesn't even live in Santa Cruz County, and we need to ascertain that individual's connection with the county in order for the court not to determine whether or not the public records requests are indeed public records, but to determine whether or not the balancing test favors disclosure versus keeping it. And that's the relevance, Your Honor, of Mr. Brakey's connection. That's the relevance, Your Honor, of Mr. Brakey's connection to Santa Cruz County.
It's loose, but I'll allow it.
Okay, and I'm not planning on delving much further, Your Honor. I just want to know, Mr. Brakey, when was the last time you lived in Santa Cruz County?
I guess my residency sold and I moved out by, I guess, 87 or 88 or something like that. I'm not sure. Had a house in Rio Rico.
Okay, thank you. And back to what Mr. Arellano said, he said that you're the expert. I don't believe I got a straight answer. Do you consider yourself an expert with respect to voting machine systems?
I would say pretty close to that, yes.
You're pretty close to an expert. Okay. And I'm looking at, again, Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. On the second page, you wrote in your letter, it is a fact that all AccuVote memory cards have been built to cheat by having illegal interpreted code installed. What does that mean?
Objection.
Okay.
He is not an expert in elections.
But in interpretive code, what he's talking about,
Wait till I run.
I'm just asking to explain what this sentence means from his letter.
It's in his letter,
It's the letter that he wrote.
and he can explain it.
Yeah, What do you mean by, it is a fact that all AccuVote memory cards have been built to cheat by having illegal interpreted code installed?
okay. Simply put, is that under the standards of the federal government when it comes to voting equipment, there should not be interpretive code. Interpretive code is an experimental code that scientists will use in an experimental model, and, but you never use it in a secure device. It's like all of a sudden in the memory card, you might have a system like Microsoft, what would be a good one to use, Excel. And you go into the memory card and you could use prime numbers. You could use positive.
I will renew my objection, Your Honor. Mr. Brakey is not testifying on something which he is not an expert, which is computer science.
Your Honor,
Yeah,
he's
no,
explaining the
exactly.
sentence. I'm just letting him run.
I'm
This is
just
his
saying, that's a
explanation.
fact. And we have a video, and I would urge the court to have the full letter and to go ahead and click on the link. And then right there, you'll see a video pop up and it'll show exactly what's wrong with the memory cards and how they will print a zero report in the morning for the poll workers. But during the day, the memory card can be set up with positive and negative numbers to switch votes. Now, this is a proven statement and fact. And if you go to the links and go farther, you'll find the reports that back everything up in the letter, because the letter is important. I'm not saying that was being done. I'm just saying that's the possibilities.
Okay, thank you. And let's jump down to the next paragraph. You say additional Diebold AccuVote voting machines can be hacked by remote control. Well, what do you mean by that?
There's a report through the link that I'm referring to, and a scientific report with all these links. It's not what I'm just saying, it's the reports that I studied. And we've seen a case like this in Pima County, that the RTA election, that they actually owned the machine to be able to pre-stuff the memory cards with positive and negatives. And I referred to that in this letter with a link. And I would really urge the court and everybody to go to those links and read those links and the scientific reports that go with them.
Do you have exhibit 1 over there with you, Mr. Brakey?
Yes, I have a
Okay.
hand.
If I can refer you to page 4, which is the page that identifies the 10 record requests that you made. And in request number 8, you identify that you want the records produced as text files on a CD or portable disk drive in the presence of Democratic Party observers. What does the Democratic Party have to do with your record request?
This is a copy of the same request that I used in late 2006 or 2007. And me and Sergio failed to edit that word out, and it was a mistake. The Democratic Party does not have any part of this litigation or request. It was an accident that that stuck in there. It was my mistake.
Okay. One moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Brakey, since you are the computer expert,
He didn't say.
Yeah, object to the
well,
chair position.
with regard to either of your statements regarding, regarding having to be a remote controller or your knowledge of that, or with regards to your build to G comments.
Or
With regards to your build to G comments, with anything that you've read, with anything that you've requested, be able to do it either, with anything that you requested, would you be able to do either of those things?
No, totally could not. Mainly because you have to have access. You have to be there. These computer systems are built to be self-isolated. And what we worry about as activists in elections, integrity, is that we know that a lot of fraud is done by insiders, just like in any types of businesses, okay? You always worry about the insider. And what's an insider? It could be the computer company, it could be the guy who programs the computer. But I can tell you one thing, it's not the poll workers that they always blame at the end for things going wrong, okay? And then, as my letter points out, things happen in elections. They don't go perfect. It's just a matter of being able to break the old philosophy that sometimes the election directors are taught that a good elections administrator is an administrator who knows how to hide all the warrants. If I taught my children that, it'd be a problem.
I'm sorry, a good elections administrator is a what?
They're taught that a good elections administrator is an administrator who knows how to hide all the warts. And that is not a good way to run elections. Elections must be transparent and verifiable to have any real meaning in my book. Trust but verify, as Ronald Reagan would say. I like that one, and I'm a Democrat saying it.
Okay. Your Honor,